So starting, there's like three generally discussed methods of starting. There's man-to-man. Oops, this doesn't really work that great. There's freestyle. And there's zone starting. We at Dartmouth focus on the zone starting. It's definitely much more disciplined, but really to pull off either of these two here, you need everybody to be at a really, really high level. And in college, most people are not at this level yet. And so zone starting kind of teaches you the fundamentals that hopefully one day, if you stick with team racing, enable you to switch more into these types of starting. So we have to stick with this first, and it really is like if you stay disciplined to it, it's a really successful way to start. So zone starting is traditionally described like this. You've got pin, middle, and boat, and for a long time, that is where it stopped. That's like what you were told, like this is where your zone is. And basically, I mean, that's all great. It definitely shows you where you're supposed to start. Although if you sailed out and your buddy said, yo, you got the middle, I think you probably know where to start. You probably didn't need this to like know that. And the point was, like, the zones, like, it didn't do anything to help you out for the whole pre-start. And that's really a much more important thing. The pre-start is really like where we do battle with another boat, and that's what's going to enable us to win our specific zone. So, and this really helped us handle the pre-start much better. Okay, so now this whole area becomes the pin zone. This whole area becomes the middle zone. And up over here is all the boat zone. Okay? And what this does is it keeps, I mean, you guys have all done some varying amount of team racing, and we all know that pre-starts can get pretty hectic, and depending on the venue, depending on size of line, breeze strength, current, wave conditions, it all varies how much this happens, but we know that a lot of times it seems to get like really congested in this area, like surrounding the committee boat, right? We all kind of agree on that? And so if we kind of stay disciplined to our zones, it's going to help us not make mistakes as a result of that congestion. Does that make sense? I mean, like everybody's been there where, all of a sudden we're like, oh, this is my guy, and I'm like, we're pushing down here, and our teammate's there, and all of a sudden this happens, and it's like, we've now gotten all jumbled, and we're going to have a terrible start. And the zone, this type of zone setup is made to alleviate that problem. So the things to remember are just like, if you're the pin guy, just always try to stay to leeward, and ideally this side of the middle boat. But it doesn't really matter if you're this way, but the important thing is to leeward. Because things get messed up when this happens, because now, like, maybe there's an opponent, and, they can swing around, and now we're, like, really getting jumbled. So if the pin boat always stays down to leeward of the middle boat, and the boat guy always stays to weather of the middle teammate, it's going to alleviate a lot of that problem. Does anybody have any, like, questions or thoughts or experiences? Maybe some of the kids that have been around a little longer kind of doing this, like anything I'm forgetting?
It's important.
All right, we'll be the green, and we'll start with the boat end person. Somebody who's got some experience starting boat, what are some things that you're thinking about? What are some things that you're thinking about? Like, what are some goals that you want to have the freedom to tack, right? Yeah. Why is that?
Because then they can come down and pin you out on board.
Okay, so the reason that we want to make sure that we have the freedom to tack, this this is like another kind of generally used term, is we are the gatekeeper. So, that said, the right-hand side of the race course is really important, right? We can all agree upon that, because the beat is pretty short. Chances are all 6 boats are going to be getting up towards the windward mark pretty similar time, and if that's the case, starboard advantage is going to be pretty important up at that windward mark because it's starboard rounding, right? So that right side of the course is really important. So we got to make sure that our boat guy has the most opportunity to win that side and really control that side. So if one of our teammates totally schools his opponent and they are coming out here, if we can't tack, the blue team owns the right side. If we can tack, we tack on that boat, we own the right side. Chances are we have starboard advantage up at the windward mark. Do we follow that? See how that's that important? Okay? So that's Colin's right. Basically, the biggest priority for the boat, for our boat teammate, it's yeah, you want to win your pair, but it's almost more important that you have the freedom to tack. You know? It's probably okay to start like that. This is the one spot on the line where it might be okay to start it's not good, but it's decent to start a little bow back as long as you still have freedom to tack and you can control the right side. Now you got to be fast if this is going to happen to you because he's going to tack right with you, and if you can't pinch him off, then you're not controlling the right side. But you get my point. The real priority up at the boat is controlling the right side and having the freedom to tack. So that said, do we think we lead or push more often as the boat starter? I think lead as well. And the reason is, the other 2 positions, it kind of varies a lot more given the breeze strength, especially in the middle. The middle, it changes a lot. But here, it's for whatever reason, maybe it's because the flag varies as to the point on the boat, or there's engine and stuff in the way. For some reason, it's a lot harder to push this boat and actually hook them in time and get them to go over. And then even if they are over, now they're sitting on you the whole time that they have to do that. And by the time it's over, you're down here, and they might come out and do that. So it's a lot harder to successfully do the push thing, and because that's if we're pushing, that's usually the end goal, right? Is pushing them over, or I suppose hooking them. I mean, yeah, we can see when I'm saying lead or push, I'm talking about the final approach. It's okay to push out here, hook them, and then they come back like that. Now you're leading, right? So it's okay to push and get that hook if you're way out here, but the goal there is to eventually lead, okay? So really, I think leading in most scenarios at the boat is the way to successfully be able to start kind of directly in front of them, and then you have the freedom to tack, you on the right side. And an ideal start at the boat pretty much looks like that. You're basically starting, you're rounding the port corner of the transom of the committee boat, and that the boat that your opponent is directly behind you or even to leeward. That's really the ideal scenario. Any questions about boat starting? All right, we'll go down to the pin next. The pin, the reason we're going down to the pin next is because the boat and the pin, Justin, I don't have a watch as well, so you gotta keep me.
You're in great shape.
The boat and the pin are the 2 things that are much more concrete, so we're going to talk about those first. The middle is a little bit more freestyle. So the pin, what do we think? What were the kind of end goals starting down at the pin? Scotty?
I don't know, either you want to trap your opponent outside the starboard ley line to the pin so he can have a good start and come back, or you want to be able to pinch him off right away.
Yeah, I think down at the pin, I mean, if you can successfully get them to not make the pin and do one of these, that's great. But more often than not, we're talking about than not, we probably want to lead in on the final approach and pinch them off and flush them back in towards our teammates, right? There are other scenarios, though. Say it's like a really right-hand favored course, you know, like it's just winding right, or there's some sort of current scenario that's making the left side particularly bad. And then it's probably okay to push them in, hook up with enough space that like you start and they won't be able to pinch you off, and then you're pinning them for a while. You know, that's okay too. Starting to weather of them is okay as long as you're not going to get pinched off. Okay? But really, this is just like a straight up man-to-man, like, kind of match race start with like a fixed point. Okay? And we're just trying to beat the other pair in this zone down here. You can do it to leeward, you can do it to windward, but the idea is that you just own that guy. Okay? So now we go over a couple of things that we need to like keep in mind for this. This is going to change a lot due to conditions, but the biggest thing that if we're ever starting pin, the biggest thing that you have to always know is where this ley line is. Okay? Because if you go past that ley line, specifically if you're leading and you go past that ley line, you're in big trouble. Okay? So we have to know where that ley line is at all times, and then the decision as to like whether to push or lead is all based on conditions. Somebody give me some examples of like when you would do which. When would you want to lead? When would you want to be us in the green boat right here? Light air, yeah, for sure. And so vice versa, we'd want to be the blue boat in a little bit more breeze. The reason being, it's much easier to accelerate when there's breeze, and that's what enables us to get our bow underneath the corner, actually get the hook, and push up. Okay? What else? What other conditions?
Probably more so is like time and distance to the line than anything else.
Right, so what exactly, that's what determines whether you want to lead or push. So, Evan, what are some scenarios that increase time and distance to the line? What other factors? Kelsey said one, adverse current.
Right. Yeah, that's one.
So an adverse current coming downwind is more likely that we want to be the green boat here, because, you know, say we defend down, even if they get the hook on us, we go up, and the current is like helping us, right? We've always got more space to the line. Anything else? Anything else that makes it easier to be the, is there anything else that makes it easier to be the leading boat?
You have a really narrow ley line. Okay.
Boats favored again.
The boat's favored. Yeah, that's good. Okay, we're getting a little tangenty. I think this is about it for the pin. So basically, let's just again review like the end goal at the pin. It's just really just a one-on-one match race, and we just want to win this zone. It's, in my opinion, it's much easier to do that if you are to leeward and ahead and pinching them off. However, there are definitely conditions that make this play okay, where you start up to windward. But the only way that you're successful with this start is if you're able to build enough space between you that you're never going to get pinched off. Because in this scenario, most times you're going all the way to the ley line. Okay? And a lot of us in this room have been in that situation. You know, like the blue boat is going to try to pinch us off the whole way. We have to survive all the way to the ley line, so then we tack, and we're winning our pair back into the mark. Okay? So if you're going to start to windward, that's your play. You're going all the way to the ley line. That's what we're trying to do. Okay? All right. So then last we'll talk about starting in the middle. Middle's kind of different because the end goal, I mean, yes, there's kind of a match race going on, but there's not like a fixed location that you're trying to win. Like the pin in the boat, it's a little more concrete. It's a little easier to understand like what the actual goal is. The boat in the middle, your goal is to be in the race off the starting line, and that's like really, really crucial. Okay, because what happens is, let's bring in the other boats now. Let's say let's say we win up there. Let's say we lose down here. Our boat in the middle, they, like, if they are in the race, let's say they're here, you know, they can easily capitalize on that, and now, like, we're all good. If we're not in the race, we can't get to either side and help out. And let's say even more so. Let's say we lost at both ends. Actually, no. Here's my point. This boat can't like get to another pair very easily to help out. The boat in the middle can get either place relatively quickly if they need to run play like right off the starting line. Okay, so that's why it's really, really important to. I mean, the middle. Like you have to be able to recognize at like 20 seconds whether or not you are going to make it or not, and you got to do everything you can to make sure that your bow is at the starting line, going fast, at go. Okay, it doesn't matter if you're on port. I mean, like you can almost be anywhere on the line. Ideally, we're just schooling our opponent, you know, pinching them off and just starting clean. But the end goal is really that we are in the race right off the start. Does everyone understand that? And to see why that is? Like you're the boat that is in the spot that like can get to places to make things happen more quickly. Okay, and so things to think about when we're the middle boat. We end up, we can be the source of great chafe for our teammates. So it's important to recognize
Make sure you
how
get that verbatim in the notebook.
Yeah. Source of great chafe. So it's important to recognize how to help out with that scenario. And actually, this goes for the boat starter as well. Basically, whatever the boat starter and the middle guy can do to buy the pin boat a little more time before the pin boat has to like come down here, the better. Because once the pin pair kind of comes down in here, if they get down here too early, it gets really messy, and it's basically like the longer they spend down like fooling around at this ley line, the less controllable a situation it is for either team in that pair, and it just becomes more of like a gamble. Okay, we want our pin guy to have like the proper time to come down here and like control the situation, run it the way he wants to do it, and that's good. If they get down there too early, suddenly, you know, we're jiving out, we're like doing the big chasing donut thing, and that's when things like just become much more of a crapshoot. Okay, so whatever we can do as these two pairs to buy them a little more time, that's really, really helpful. Okay, the other thing is, as the middle boat, the whole pre-start, it's pretty easy for us to like help out a teammate. Okay, so let's say our boat guy is in a little bit of trouble and we don't have anybody to deal with at the moment. We can just come up here, tack, and stuff them, and the boat can like tack out, and now they're kind of like in a controlling position again. Okay, but just recognize when your teammates are in trouble in pre-start, and don't be afraid to go help them out. That doesn't mean this. Like if your teammate is here, they are a lost cause. That they've done this, they've brought this on themselves, and that they are, they got to figure that one out on their own.
And the reason, what's important is that the reason for that is because if you go over there and chase them, then we're taking two of our boats away from a good start.
Yeah.
You know, and even though we might free that guy.
Yeah. If we come over here, those two blue boats are like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Green 3 is gonna get hosed.
Yeah. The blue boats are running on 1-2. Thanks for coming.
Okay. So yeah, I think that's most of what I have to say about starting in the middle. Are there any questions about middle starts? Anything that I've missed? Middle, as you can see, is definitely much more abstract. We typically identify our opponent last. Like it's like basically the free guy that hasn't been picked up by our other two teammates. The other two teammates have probably engaged, like the pin boat usually engages first, probably around 45 seconds. The boat, they, a lot of times they know who each other are, but it doesn't actually happen until like 20 seconds. They just
Gentleman's agreement.
They just kind of, a lot of times you'll see this kind of thing happening over in the boat zone. I can smile about that because so I started, like when I first started team racing, I was a pin starter. Then I was a middle for a long time, and my siblings have pushed me over there most recently. But it's nice over there.
When you get older, the slowest guy starts boat. Which is why John and I got a lot of time starting between the two of us.
But yeah, so you see the middle is a little more abstract, but it's cool because you have a lot of power and a lot of control in the race. Any other questions about that? All right.
One more important thing I think to talk about before we move on is a lot of the time, or you guys might have heard this idea of like the only thing that's important is that you win your pair, and that is definitely true. We always want to be able to win our pair, but so often in college team racing we see, like that scenario John just showed us right here. This blue guy crushing our guy, and then they're going to start like 15 seconds late, or 10 seconds late, or even 5 seconds late, right? Starting late, winning your pair, well, better than starting late, losing your pair, is still not great, okay? And that's because you're leaving it up to your other two teammates, right? So when we see this type of scenario where we know these guys are going to be late, as long as we can win these two pairs, we're going to win this race, right? And I think that overarching concept of like, I need to win my pair versus like the most important thing is to get off the line. Winning my pair is important to understand, okay? That like being in the race off the line is really critical for all three boats.
It's almost, I would say that's more important than winning your pair.
Yeah.
And that's where, like I said, being able to recognize when you're going to lose your pair and do whatever you can to just get off the line in any of the three positions is a really important skill.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of times, like, let's say we're the green 3 here, we're battling for the pin, and, we lose a little bit of flow, a little bit more flow than boat 1 does. And at 20 seconds, we see that we're starting to slide towards them just a little bit, but we're like, no, I can do it, I can hold here, And then all of a sudden we start like that, we've all been there. I've been there plenty. Like, by the time this is over, this is what it's going to look like, right? Like once we go upwind a little bit, and now you are out of the race, and like you're not going to be back in. Probably not going to be back in this race until the run, okay? And who knows? By then it might be over. Okay, so it's really important if we can see that we're sliding towards them at like 25 seconds or even 17 seconds, and be like, all right, this is not going to happen. I just got to get out of here. I'd rather see us start like on port, ducking everybody like that. I would rather see that than like try to battle here. Okay.